Hello, this is Unsung with GameLeap, and today we're going to be providing you with the tier list for patch 13.20. 13.20 has brought a huge amount of changes. Lots of nerfs for jungle, system changes for gold, and nerfs to almost every offensive keystone in the game have brought down some of the most explosive bursts present in League of Legends. This has caused an entire horde of new champions to shoot up in tiers, and is actually shaking up the meta a significant amount. As I'm sure that you know, Worlds being on signifies that the season is almost over, so make sure that you pick up some of these champions to get LP while you can. We'll primarily be focusing on the S+ tier champions today, as well as giving you some champions to stay away from. Just to clarify, this tier list is the best for climbing from Iron to Diamond. If I were to rate these champions for their max potential in the hands of a professional, these lists would look a lot different. Our goal is to give you the best condensed list to impact your games on a new patch immediately, so you can get that LP and make your goals while still having fun. Let's go ahead and begin with top lane. Camille has shot up to be the #1 best top laner in the game with the lower overall damage and higher time to kill. Her burst is obscene, her lane is hard to punish, and her scaling is unmatched right now on this patch. As an added bonus, she beats the hell out of Aatrox and Garen, who are seeing huge play rate spikes recently. This champion is a must for any top laner that wants to climb this patch, go grasp into the hard lanes, and then conquer into the easier lanes like Aatrox. Worlds has shown that even at the highest levels of play, Garen, the easiest of champions, can be an absolute beast. After the 13.20 changes, he still remains a beast. While most champions can't outright kill you in a rotation, Garen with the Flash Ignite setup most definitely can at basically any point post level 6. This champion is busted even if you've never played him before. Just make sure you ban Camille and that you take Phase Rush over Conquer. The Stridebreaker build on this champion is the way to go. Stay away from Trinity Force. Just a reminder, if you want an in-depth guide for all mechanics, tips, and tricks for champions like Camille, head on over to GameLeap.com by clicking on the description box below. I've been working on the website for over 3 years creating courses for people like you to use and abuse. If you want to pick up a champion in the shortest amount of time, there is no better resource out there. I'll see you on the website. Fiora is our next OP pick for obvious reasons. Percent max health true damage in a slower game is really strong, and Fiora split pushes like no other on top of that. Recently, Hullbreaker is proving to be a little bit controversial in its current state in the game. People are finally catching on that this item is really strong, and Fiora is of course one of the best users of this item. She also has a good matchup into both Garen and Camille, so definitely add this champion to your roster. I foresee either a Fiora nerf or a Hullbreaker nerf very soon. Probably both. Aatrox is still very strong, however his bad matchups and slower damage are starting to hurt him a little bit this patch, removing him from the top spot. This is still one of the better tops in the game, but he's not nearly as oppressive as before. With the rise of auto-reliant carries in the bot lane and Fiora in the top lane, the Rock is also back. Malphite is in a great spot this patch and will forever be a good counter pick. Just make sure that the enemy team doesn't have a Silas on it if you're picking Malph, otherwise you need to dodge ASAP. Now, this champion has been strong for a few patches, but what makes Malphite not be on the top end of this list is usually his reliance on his team. This lower pace game, however, has made him a little bit less reliant on his team and more successful on his own, which is why he's now included on this list. As far as what you need to avoid this patch, K'Sante's win rate is somehow even lower than it was on the previous patch. I'm sorry, K'Sante mains, but you might want to move on for a little bit while Riot figures him out. Now, onto the jungle. The jungle has been completely shifted. AP scaling champions reign supreme in the post 13.20 world, boasting some of the highest win rates that I have ever seen. Fiddlesticks is currently the best jungler in the game, and it isn't due to his smaller player base. This champion pumps percent damage like no other, has a game-changing ulti, and can't really be counter-jungled in the new jungle. The camps are so tanky that he has tons of sustain when he gets invaded, and the overall slower clears make it harder for him to get invaded in the first place. Add this champion to your pool ASAP, there is a nerf coming soon, I promise. Graves has shot up in win rate this patch as well, since he's one of the few champions that can still burst people down while doing huge sustained damage. If you want a safe pick 99% of the time, go with this champion. He doesn't have many counters ever. Briar is still blatantly overpowered, with her win rate nearing 53% at the time of recording this video. She's not hard to learn, very rewarding, and just flat out busted. Maokai is also making a comeback with both the tank and first strike demonic build. The objective control that he offers when paired with his brain dead easy ganks shoot him up into the OP tier. Evelynn is also here to stay. She won't drop until a nerf comes through. This champion has been ruining a lot of solo queue games for a long time, and 13.20 hasn't changed that. Zac is also shooting up in win rate this patch, but he has a lot of strong counters in the meta at the moment. Stay away from Lee and Ka this patch. They're having a hard time adjusting to the new jungle and their higher time to kill. Mid lane is also seeing a surge in scalers. Orianna remains the best blind pick, but her solo carry potential has been knocked a tad by all the changes. She's going to be solid for as long as this patch is live, so we'll leave her here as a tentative #1. The slower time to kill and the rise of one champion in particular is why she's on the fence. Kassadin has soared in win rate this patch compared to last. There is 100% a nerf coming for him shortly. Abuse him while you can. Play the first First Strike rune page over Electrocute, and this is a strong potential for being one of, if not the strongest champion in the game at the moment. His best counters have been nerfed by the rune changes, and then on top of that, there are buffs to items like Seeker's Arm Guard, which allow him to cheat the lane phase. You can go Rod of Ages on him. I would recommend that you try both Roa and Crown, and see which one you prefer. Sylas has been committing crimes for a while now, and this patch also allows for plenty of those to still happen. Unlike Kassadin, Sylas is strong early and strong mid-game, for those of you that want to 1v9. If the enemy team drafts good ultis or just champions that you can bully, you need to be playing Sylas. Aurelion Sol has spiked in win rate due to the slower game. He deals massive amounts of percent damage, has one of the best scalings in the entire game, and can also stall for years with just his E. People are cooking with a Q into W max build on him and just stat checking people down with the Fire Breath, but it's still a bit too early to say if this is the way to go. The regular Q into E max is just as potent as before if you're uncomfortable with trying the new one, but don't be afraid to experiment. This build does look pretty promising as of right now. Now that we covered these strong picks, let's go ahead and talk about things that you should stay away from. LeBlanc, Ryze, and Zed have all taken a massive hit this patch. LeBlanc from the nerfs a couple of patches ago, Ryze from simply the meta being in a bad spot for him, and Zed because of the nerfs that he's just received. Zed was really overpowered with the WMAX second build, but Riot has since accordingly nerfed it, which leaves Zed in kind of a spot where he's not really super oppressive and he can't assassinate people due to the amount of gold that's in the game. Assassins are really reliant on hitting their power spikes, and the reduction of the plate gold and the reduction of, the solo kills that are able to happen in mid lane have harmed Zed to a degree that most other champions haven't received. This, along with the prevalence of single target CC on like Camille, Fiora, most of the AP junglers like Fiddlesticks and the like, have also made Zed a little bit less slippery and far more susceptible to getting picked. For these reasons, I would recommend staying away from these three champions in particular. Bot lane is our next role on this list. Ezreal is still dominating bot lane due to his decent early game, immense scaling, and his ability to go Sheen items. Until we get the item rework, this champion is going to be ultra contested for good reasons. He's safe, potent, and doesn't need to build terrible crit items, which is going to be a recurring theme with the champions here. Trinity Muramana Ezreal is top tier, as is the Essence Reaver Duskblade build even after the patch. Vayne is still going to retain her number 2 spot. The slower time to kill and of course her percent max health true damage are very strong in 13.20, where the rune damage has been nerfed and the snowball potential from plates has been nerfed a little bit as well. These changes that we listed make Vayne have an easier lane, which wasn't so terrible to begin with after the introduction of Static Shiv. You still build Shiv into Trinity on this champion for the best chance at winning your games. Her 1v1s are godlike, she basically always gets the scale, and she does really well into a lot of the other picks. She is pretty decent into Ezreal if you're able to close the gap on him, which is one of her most attractive points. Unfortunately for all of you Jhin enjoyers out there, Jhin has most definitely fallen due to the Jinx buffs. This champion is very clearly overbuffed and has good matchups in the majority of the roster. This is the one crit carry that is viable, and it's simply due to how high her numbers are at the moment. Jinx is also super easy to pick up, so if you're new to bot lane or just new to Jinx in general, don't be afraid of taking her into rank. Ashe is still without a doubt the strongest utility ADC in the game, but some of these matchups in other lanes have kind of knocked her down a peg. Sylas is incredibly scary to play against, as is Camille and Kassadin. For these reasons, I wouldn't recommend playing Ashe over the majority of the other champions unless you absolutely need the CC on your team. She's still really strong, so if you're an Ashe main, don't worry too much about it. Kai'Sa is still decent with the Umbral Blade build, but I wouldn't recommend picking her into some of these other champions at the moment. Wait until the item changes in 13.21, which is when they're rumored to happen. The armor nerf is not super significant on her, but it does make her surviving a little bit more difficult. As far as what champions to stay away from, I would recommend not, of course, playing crit ADCs this patch. Crit ADCs are in a pretty terrible spot for good reason. Their items are super expensive, the scaling is kind of limited for what they do end up offering, and then on top of that, a lot of these champions are just simply way better in skirmishes in the early game, which the game is centered more around. If you're going to play any crit ADC, I would say play Xayah and Jinx, but that's about it. Support is just another rehash of basically the same champions as last time. Senna is now number 1 as far as supports go. Her percent damage, scaling, and value are way too high after her recent buffs. Before this patch, she was even with Rakan and Blitz in terms of overall strength, but she's jumped several spots overnight. This is largely due to just how much damage she's able to put out and how safe it is for her to scale at the moment. Rakan is now our number 2 since it's a bit harder for him to convert a lead. Some of the champions in the meta shut him out at the moment, Sylas, and the overall increase in time to kill have kind of brought his effectiveness down just a tad. However, that being said, Redemption, Radiant Virtue Rakan is still really strong if you're able to hit that item level. It's just a little bit more difficult with the reduction of plate gold as supports are on such a low income as is. Blitzcrank is also less effective on this patch, simply due to the nerf to his ADC's runes. It's harder for Blitzcrank to secure kills as he doesn't really deal damage by himself, and Lethal Tempo, Conqueror, and Press the Attack have all received nerfs. This means that if you hook a champion, it's harder to secure a kill immediately, which is what Blitzcrank excels at. Blitzcrank loses when people actually turn the fight onto him. It's very easy to turn a fight onto Blitz in the current state of the game. Bard is also still quite OP, especially with the Radiant Virtue Redemption build, but the nerfs to plating and the reduction of snowball mechanics around the game have made Bard just a little bit less effective as well. This champion is really good in the majority of scenarios, but there are definitely champions that do it better. Rakan is better engage, Senna is better scaling, Janna is better for peeling, you get the idea. So while Bard isn't a terrible champion, he is definitely on the weaker end in my opinion. We'll have to see where he lands throughout the rest of the patch. As far as the supports that you should stay away from, I would recommend not actually staying away from any support this patch. Certain enchanters are a little bit on the weaker side, but the majority of them are performing quite alright with the extension of time to kill. Sona's on the higher end of the win rate spectrum, so is Janna, Soraka's right up there with her. These champions are succeeding in this modern meta. Anyways, this was Unsung with GameLeap. Thank you all for watching and hope you all have a wonderful day. I'll see you all in the next video. Make sure to check out the website.